I want to thank you guys for taking the time and coming on board with this class that I'm doing, this tree training. Basically, what I want to do is I want to take you through this journey about what allowed me to become a better business owner and get to where we are today. But in order to do that, a lot of you may or may not know who I am. Doesn't really matter, but I'm going to explain to you a little bit about my story and a little bit about why I wanted to do this and why it's so important that you guys do this. A lot of my family are laborers. You know, they're not, none of them really went to college. I think I had an uncle that might have gone to college, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're a blue collar family. Before I graduated, I started dating my now wife when we were seniors in high school, and she gave me a lot of confidence to be better than who I was, and that I could be that person who I wanted to be. So that's kind of where my eyes started opening. I started doing better in high school, and she gave me the confidence to apply to an automotive training program, and I got accepted. And after high school, I graduated, and I do what every kid does: is they go to their parents and they're like, "Hey, Mom and Dad, where's that college fund that you guys saved for me for so long?" And it was kind of like it was a letdown. I'm not gonna lie. But I also was a kid, and I didn't really understand how that really worked then. I do now. So I ended up getting a job at a dairy, working on a loading dock for 9 months. I was devastated. I didn't know what else to do. I felt that I was going to stay in the dairy forever. I was lost. So I had gotten an interview with a local Chevy dealer. I went there and dressed to the nines, went there like my life depended on it, that I had to get the job, but I didn't know how I was gonna pay for it. So I went there and had the interview, and I think I went back and had another interview, and I said, look, and they said they'd like to hire me. And I said, that's fantastic, but I don't have the money to pay for it. I said, I don't know what I can do. Maybe I can work here and pay for it at the same time, but I'm sorry, I don't want to waste your guys' time. And they're like, no, we want to give you a full ride and pay for your tuition. And it was a godsend, right? It was great. I wanted to be in the dealership. At the time, independent shops had a bad name. They were grease monkeys. My brother, I saw my brother, how he worked his butt off and how hard he worked. And I felt the dealer had, higher level training. They had newer equipment, newer cars, nothing's rusted out. So that's why I wanted it, because I wanted to provide a better life for myself and for my family. So I was working at a dealer in Illinois, and I ended up coming back. I actually ended up applying and working at a local dealership down here in Highland, Indiana, and wanted to get into management. I knew I didn't want to wrench for very long, for the rest of my life. So I also wanted to teach, but teaching didn't pay as well as being a technician. And so I had to juggle that. I actually tried to get out of the business a couple of times because I wasn't happy. I didn't have purpose. I didn't think that the knowledge I had value. So I was really down on myself. We would go to these, when my wife was in the chemical field, we'd go to these parties and these mansions of these PhD doctors, or these PhDs and these chemists, and and I was just a grease monkey. That was it. That was all I felt. It was pretty lowly for me. Was just looking for purpose, for what I was supposed to do and where my calling was, and it took a long time to find it. I was selling real estate on the weekends and during the week when I could, and so I would have to go into an office on the weekends and sit there and listen to phone calls or answer phones. And there was a lady sitting next to me, and she says, she turns to me on a Sunday and she says, "Why would you want to sell real estate?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I just don't want to work on cars anymore." And she says, "Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And I said, "Well, why?" And she says, "Because you have two young daughters at home," and she says, "you have a wealth of knowledge in the automotive industry." She says, "It makes no sense that you want to give all that up to start into a field that you're trying to support a family in, that you know nothing about." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." It makes sense, right? It's so simple. So I went home and I told my wife about it. The next week I went into work and talked to a couple of the tool guys and told them to find me a shop to buy. August 20th, 2007 was when we took that place over and we changed the name, and it's been here ever since. A lot of the challenges I had, I didn't know anything about business. I knew I could fix cars. And so I was working long days. I wanted to be a father and be at home, with my kids. I didn't have the understanding of how to run a business. So I had the one employee that was with the previous company, and he stayed with me for 6 years. But I tried to do what I thought I knew. And it worked out to a point, and it started not working out. I would come home for dinner, help put the kids to bed, and then go back to work. Or I would get up at 3 or 4 in the morning, go to work, come back at 7 in the morning, get the kids ready for school because my wife had to leave, go to work, come home. I always tried to be home for dinner with the kids and spend time with them and stuff like that. And then it just started getting obviously tiring, and started running out of gas with it. But it was the only way I could see my kids. We would make our own Christmas presents, and we had $40 we would spend on groceries every week, and the kids had one pair of shoes. We did all that.
There used to be like this loft in the very first shop that we had, and I was up there like watching TV, eating ice cream while you were doing work downstairs on cars, and I just remember, oh, this is so great, I love this, and that's like one of the first things I remember about it.
Somewhere between 3 and 5.
I was gonna say maybe like 4. Yeah. That was like that's one of the first things I remember.
I feel like this is really and kill me for this, but like Disney World, I think is like one of them. Like when we were younger, like the limo.
You were like 7. That was like one of the first things.
That's like one of the first things that like I actually remember. I remember like waking up, the limo, like because it was just such a special thing that we all got to experience, and like it's not like we had ever experienced something like that before, and that was definitely probably one of the first like monumental things that I've feel like I've experienced and remembered.
Do you remember that we saved for years?
Yes, I remember the big pretzel jar. I remember that.
And you were 3 when we started saving for it, and you were 5 when we got to go.
Yeah, I remember that. So I think that was probably the first like core family memory.
Depression. This is probably one of the biggest single things that I see a lot of shop owners deal with is depression. I have learned how to overcome it a lot faster and a lot easier than I used to. It used to take me down for days, sometimes a week or so, and it can definitely it could definitely ruin your business, and it can definitely hurt you, and it can definitely create a negative impact on your business for you. What I want you guys to understand is that you need to believe in yourself more than anything. And I know that might sound corny, and that just might sound dumb. You're like, Jason, it doesn't even make any sense. Of course I believe in myself. Well, do you? And because I got to be honest with you, when we were going through the stuff that we were going through, I didn't really believe in myself very much.
From 2008 until 2017, I suffered a lot in business. When I worked at the dealer in Illinois, this guy came in and he bought this brand new, beautiful 2001 Corvette, brand new. And he and I developed a relationship and a friendship, and so we started working on. He started paying me to modify the car. Is what happened, and we became friends. And in 2005, he wanted to sell it. And I was at the dealer at the time, so it was a good thing. So I ended up buying it from him and kept it. And in 2008, almost a year after we had bought the business, we ended up moving from our neighborhood and into another house. And the month after we moved, the housing market crashed in 2008. Lost a ton of equity everywhere. We had 2 mortgage payments for a year, and I was new to business that I didn't know anything about. So I had to capitalize the business, so I ended up selling my Corvette. It was my dream car. I'd done all the work on it. I knew what it was about, but I had to make the sacrifice for our family, which wasn't a big deal, but I vowed to never see the car again at the time, because I drove it to a friend of mine's dealership an hour and a half away. and told them to get rid of the car, and I didn't want to see it again. And I was depressed, I was upset, I felt like a failure, but I did what I had to do to provide for my family. And that's what it was all about. Everyone was mad at me. My wife was upset with me. My kids were upset with me. You know, I owed vendors, you know, owed taxes. I was everything you could do wrong, I was doing it wrong. And I was trying to do everything right, but I just didn't know. And so 2016, I left the shop and I left a service advisor and 2 technicians to run it. I was just burned out, I was done. And so I went to become a service director at a Chrysler dealership. And I was able to flip their service department around in 90 days. And it took me a year to realize why I was able to. And it's because I had no emotional attachment to that place. And every decision I was making in my business was an emotional one. And it was horrifying for me because I didn't want to upset anybody, but I was upsetting everyone. And hurting the ones that I love the most. So I spent a year at a dealership because the money I was making at the dealer was going back to pay the bills at the shop because we were failing at the shop. So my wife says, at the end of 16, she says, we have to do 2 things. We have to file bankruptcy or you have to go back and fix the shop. I didn't know how. So in 2017, I started trying to find business training. I went away for a weekend here and there, learning about how to run a business. And then in August of 2017 is when I found ShopFix Academy. And that's when it all started to change. I was scrolling on Facebook one day and I saw Aaron Stokes talking about free training, clicked on it.
Get the back of the house fixed, but if you don't have anybody that can sell up front, it does not matter. Okay, guys? So make sure you focus in on getting somebody hired that can run the front counter and run it the right way. All right, guys. See you in the next video.
I called them and I said, sign me up. ShopFix started in 2017. And I was number 59 to join their mastermind program at the time. And now there's over 900 shop owners in that group. And so he signed me up and we did our call and everything went really well for the first month. But I was so far in debt, I couldn't afford to keep going. So I called him up. I said, look, Aaron, I said, I love the program. I can't do it anymore. I said, I have all this debt, this massive debt that's taking everything away from me that I've caused. I said, I can't do it. He said, I'm gonna tell you what. He says, I'm gonna give you 2 months free. I'll give you a scholarship for 2 months. He says, but when you get yourself right, you need to take and pay it forward and give somebody else that scholarship. Absolutely, done deal. So the next year I called Aaron and I said, okay, I'm ready. And he's like, for what? I said, give me 2 people I can sponsor. And he said, you really don't have to do that. I said, no, a deal's a deal. If it would have been any other company, really, I mean, honestly, that never would have happened and I wouldn't be sitting here today.
You're the problem. It's not your lazy ass technician. It's not that service advisor you keep complaining about. It's you. It's this jacko standing right here.
When you own a business, there is no turn-off time. It's 24/7. We've had the police come at our door at 2:30 in the morning because a door was left open. And so it's literally 24/7.
And whether you're a strong leader or a weak leader, you gotta step up. You're gonna run the company that you've been given, the company that you believe, when you were passionate about your business, excited about your future, that's the freaking company that you want, and that's what you built, and you said, that's what I'm gonna go be successful, I'm gonna make all this money. And then when it didn't happen, it didn't work out like you thought, you started giving up your dreams, one dream at a time.
That's the greater responsibility. Those are the sacrifices that we make as a family, to have this thing that is bigger than us.
3 words to describe the culture here at M&M: the best shop ever.
So in 2018, things started turning around for us. They were going pretty well. And so I would always look on eBay and look on these sites because I wanted a Corvette. I wanted to buy a Corvette. And things were going really well. And So the time went by. Obviously, COVID happened, and then 2021, I was thinking, I was like, I wonder where my Corvette is at. And so I had a couple friends. I got the VIN number. Had a couple friends run the VIN number for me, and got the gentleman's information. I sent him a picture of me and my daughter standing next to the car when she was 2.5 years old, and now she's 18. He calls me, and because I had sent him a letter asking him if I could buy it back. I said, I don't know what the car looks like. I don't know if you think I'm crazy, but I'd like to buy the car back. And I explained to him the story. And so he calls me, he's like, yeah, he says, I really have no problem. I have no reason to sell it. I love the car. He says, I didn't change anything on it. It was perfect. And when I saw the pictures of it, it looked like it was in a bubble. So he says, I love the story and I don't want to sell it. He's like, but if it's going back home, I'll sell it back to you. So my wife and I flew down there a couple months later and saw the car for the first time in 15 years and bought it and had it trailered back home. And so I got it back.
That's
awesome. ShopFix changed my life by holding me accountable, through the people that were there, the coaches. Also, I had someone to look up to. I also had someone to talk to. And I didn't feel alone in the industry anymore. So many people that are shop owners, we all have this, we have to be enemies or we can't be competitive, there's this competition thing, right? And I have really good friends that are really close to us, and I think there's enough work for everyone. And I've never had that mentality. I think that ShopFix made me understand that better and made me realize that I'm going to be the one that's going to either grow my business or lose my business. It's not going to be my competition. 2019, when we did $1 million in sales, I felt that I hit my pinnacle of success. And my wife and daughters, we were sitting at dinner one night and that next year, and I said, I think I'm gonna quit ShopFix. And they're like, why? And my wife's like, well, you do what you think is best. And I said, okay. And my daughters are like, they both looked at me and they're like, you can't quit ShopFix. And I said, well, why not? And like, because you're not the same dad you were before you started. So,
having time to reflect after that dinner conversation, Jason made the right decision and stayed. And now, being a coach for over 30 other shops across the country, when you think about legacy again and impact, look at what he's doing through ShopFix. Not only did ShopFix fix our shop, but now he's reaching down with his hand and bringing people up too. And so it was definitely a good pivotal moment when he was kind of wavering, and I'm glad we talked him back into it.
I mean, I'm glad that he never stopped. I love going to ShopFix and I love learning everything, and I look forward to it every year.
As we've grown over the years, our youngest daughter, she's like her dad. She wants to get dirty, and she worked at one of our stores during the summer and did tires and oil changes. And she'd come home, she'd have burn marks, manifold burn marks on her arm. I said, you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm going back tomorrow. She loved it. Our oldest daughter wanted nothing to do with the back shop. She was an office girl, and so one of the really, really proud moments in my life with her was she had applied for a scholarship for a college, for a leadership scholarship. And she actually wrote a letter. They asked her like who her favorite leader was, and she wrote it about me. And so that just gives you more reason to keep going. We all have dreams, we all have dreams and aspirations that of what we think it is like to own and run a business. But I will tell you, it is the most grueling, most unappreciative thing sometimes being an owner, and it can bankrupt you and put you into a place that you don't want to be in. With faith, perseverance, and taking action and doing the things that you say you are going to do, and educating yourself, there are no limits. You have to become a better leader in your business than you do a technician or a service manager or any other part of your business, because if you want to have good people, then those people have to trust you. So if they're coming in here and they're just turning a wrench every day, you're probably not going to keep them, because they can go anywhere else and turn a wrench. But if you bring them in and you give them purpose, then they'll stay with you and they'll want to grow with you. And there again, there are no limitations. So that's it.
I just want to say I'm the first M, so except for at Dyer. Yeah, we do have our own shops that kind of fit our personalities almost, which I think is really funny.